The only one holding you accountable is you. And some of you may be absolute incredible machines where that works absolutely perfectly for, and you're complete super geniuses, and every decision you make turns to gold and you never have any issues and problems and whatever else. That's certainly not been my experience. Having other folks that hold me accountable has been incredibly powerful.
If you're going to be successful in this industry, I think you definitely need a mastermind. And then it's figuring out what type of personality, structure, theme, whatever it is, and works best for you.
Living in that 90-day structure, when you do that for years at a time, it's amazing how much you accomplish and how quick it goes and how much you can accelerate and how quickly you can scale the things that you're doing.
What is happening, beautiful people? Welcome to the Build Your Gympire Podcast. You're in the right place if you are a gym owner, a personal trainer, a fitness pro. This is going to grow your gym, grow your business in ways that you, your team, your community, I know I stuttered, the people you serve, and not least importantly, your bank account are going to feel absolutely awesome about. The Adele-themed vocal intro is still sort of in progress. I'm going to knock a little guitar, do a little vocal, have some fun here. But today we're still riding high off our first mastermind meeting, in-person mastermind meeting with the Gympire folks. And we wanted to talk about the hidden value of masterminds. Now, this conversation is absolutely, totally, 100% a sales pitch for Build Your Gympire. Jokes aside, whether you're listening to this and you want to find somewhere else to go, or you're in another business area and what have you, you're in another niche, whatever it may be, I've always found value in masterminds, whether it was me as a personal trainer, a gym owner, or even in the, kind of the agency and coaching business that I'm in now. And so I wanted to dive into, Mark had the great idea of diving into the hidden value of masterminds, of being in a group similar to ours, even if it's not ours. So Mark, kick us off. What's the hidden value, examples of hidden value in masterminds?
Yeah, just reflecting on our amazing first in-person meeting. And I've been to a lot of masterminds, a lot of in-person masterminds, because I'm definitely somebody that likes to go and, be face-to-face with a bunch of people in the room and all that. And I prefer a more, especially now after a decade of attending masterminds, I prefer a much smaller room, which that's kind of my first point of like, if you're going to be successful in this industry, I think you definitely need a mastermind. And then it's figuring out what type of personality, structure, theme, whatever it is, and works best for you. And you'll definitely need to reevaluate that as you go through business in the years. Nothing works forever, I guess, because we adapt, and we have different perspectives on things for sure. So constantly evaluating that, again, find what's the best fit for you. I guess that's the easiest way to say that. But as you go through these masterminds, it's just like reflecting back on like, man, like if I didn't attend that meeting, if I didn't get that insight, if somebody didn't ask me that question, where would my business be? And then where would my life be? What would my day-to-day look like if I didn't make those changes or answer those questions or give that thought process? So for instance, we had just this last meeting, it's just simple little things that you take for granted while you're in the room talking for hours and hours and hours. And then if you think back, it's like, so for example, one guy creating multiple locations. I obviously have multiple locations, so does Connor. And the question came about like sharing staff across multiple locations. And should I do that or should not I do that? And we asked some clarifying questions, of course, and because everything's situational, right? But we could say, this is when you would do it. This is what, if you're going to do it, this is what you should look out for, or don't do it because of this is what happened to us, or this was in our situation. And then usually by saying that, they can draw their own conclusion and they got clarity on that situation, which goes back and changes potentially their entire hiring and or employee structure, team structure, based around how they scale, right? Well, I'm just going to split staff. I'm just going to do this. And it's just like, there's negatives to that. There's positives to that. Which one do you want to live with? And to get that clarity out of, and relatively quickly, hey, you could do this or this. Like, what do you think? And they're like, oh yeah, like, I guess that's a good point. And then they ask clarifying questions. Like, so it's just like those little things. That's one that came to mind. And if you really want to drill down, there's so many more for that. And it's just like, and it's one of those things too where we don't truly understand it until like maybe a meeting or two later, or 6 to 9, 12 months later. And it's like, dude, remember you thought you were going to do that, and then all of a sudden you switch gears, thankfully, and this is where you ended up. Like, wow, you avoided a big a big drop off or avoid a big obstacle by doing that. So I think that's such a big thing. If you want to be successful, find somebody that's going to challenge you, or find a group that's going to challenge you. This information overload by ourselves, having that conversation in our head is good. And there's a lot of smart people that can get by with information, but a few times a year, well worth the investment. I think something that a lot of gym owners face too, when they're first starting to figure out about masterminds, some of these carry a quote unquote hefty price tag. I know initially when I started, like, oh man, that's a lot. Or I got to travel here. Like, that it was a price. And then could I take the time away? Right. So if I committed to it, I'm going to have to find a way to pay for it. And I'm going to figure out a way to leave and exit the facility for a day or two. So both of those things are actually good things, right? Because I have to force myself to earn more money to pay for invest in this. I'm going to make the investment pay off, and I definitely have to start a strategy to remove myself out of the business just by committing to go away for a few times a year, right? But then you go to these masterminds for like, 5 or 10 years, and all of a sudden it's a drop in the bucket. And leaving the gym is not a problem because you've established that process. Paying for it's definitely not a problem because you've 1,000x your investment because your business is in a much different place, and that doesn't happen without that first initial step. But so I think it's such a hidden value with masterminds. That was just one small example, but I think if you want to be successful, you got to get people around people that are going to be asking you the tough questions, or even just giving you the feedback or fresh eyes on that. Like, it's invaluable if you want to be successful and successful quickly, because there's definitely a cost to doing it slowly. And I think you can definitely accelerate and pour some gas in the fire, getting in the right room at the right time.
I want to be very clear to folks that are listening to this. So while, yes, there's an incredible value in joining masterminds, and we all probably think that you should totally do it, we may not have space in ours by the time you're listening to this. So this is very much like potentially not a sales pitch. You can reach out and see if we have spots in the Gympire Mastermind. At this point, we're pretty dang close to full. It's a very, very small group, right? We are not throwing 100 people in a seminar and calling it a mastermind, because to me, that's not a mastermind personally. And so this is a very sort of, I guess, general sort of value of masterminds that we've experienced over the years, and we continue to see and experience, I think, in our own businesses and with the folks that we're currently coaching. But I think a bunch of awesome points there, Mark. Connor, what you got?
I think just getting in the room with people that are either equal or slightly better or way better than you, or where you want to get to, is just, I think that's the most powerful thing. Obviously, there's just so many tactics that you pick up. Like, by the end of it, as people are talking, other people are doing their hot seats, just casual conversation outside in the hall. Like, there's just so many writer downers. Like, there's so many like little nuggets that that are quick hitters that you by the end of it, like after 2 days, or you just literally have pages of notes that you can like you go back through, and you're on the plane, and it's just like, oh my God, I totally forgot about that. Like, there's just so many things that are so like quick hitters that are so good. But one of the hidden what is it called? The hidden, what were we talking about here?
Hidden value.
My brain is not valuable. I think it's just seeing the people that are at where you want to get to, just how they operate, like their personal, how they take so many things into just, my brain just literally went away. Edit. Just the way that the people that are at the place that you want to get to, like their personal operating system, how they take in all this information, and they're not just so quick to make a decision. They think about the second order consequences, the third order consequences. And it's like, yeah, you want to get to a certain place, and you want to, like, let's just say, scale your model. And like, you're just looking for like, hey, what type of marketing did you do? Hey, like, what was the play that you did? And it's just like, dude, like, those tactics are great, but the way that the people that are at a certain level, whether it be 7-figure or, multi locations, it's the way that they think about things and the strategies that they take. And it's just not the tactics. And to get in the room and lock yourself in a room for 8 hours a day and be able to hear that and absorb that by osmosis, like, that's what I think is the biggest difference that these groups make. Whether because obviously you could listen to podcasts like this And right, you can have a ton of rider downers and get a lot of tactics and all that stuff, but to be in a room and to see someone like Mark, who is so dialed into what he has created, and like all of his, like, he's so dialed into his numbers and all that stuff of making a decision, and it's just not a simple yes or no. So to see the way that his mind works and to be able to talk to him back and forth, like that's the biggest hidden value.
Yeah, I think there's been so many examples over the years where like I learned more from other people's hot seats. So we do a hot seat format, which is basically individual coaching where every single person in the room is focused on you and your business's issues for whatever the period of time is, right? It might be an hour, half an hour, whatever. But it's you and your business are on the hot seat. I've learned so much from other people's hot seats over the years. Like my method of scaling, whatever you want to call it, like the fitness, the B2C side of what we were doing was I did a bunch of partnerships, right? So I was doing like Marcus Lemonis, the profit deals with distressed gyms and doing some startup stuff. And it was like, I learned so much from being in the room, hearing about other people's fucked up partnerships, where it was like, oh, when I did my partnerships, like I avoided a lot of these issues. And like Connor's saying, right, you have folks in the room, particularly when you can get in the room with folks that are above you, right, that are doing more than what you're doing, even if it's not in every aspect of your business in your life. Maybe they're kicking the shit out of you in terms of being able to scale up, their teams or whatever it is. But if you can get around folks that are doing a little bit better than you, even if it's just in an area or two where you have this idea, I can't tell you how many times I've seen a situation where someone has an idea. I think I'm going to do this in my business. And then someone like Connor or someone like Mark says, okay, I hear what you're saying. This is typically, the initial result may not be that bad, but here's typically the second, the third, the fourth order thing that you're going to have to deal with if you go down this path. Might I potentially suggest not doing that fucking stupid thing and doing something way smarter? And it saves so much time. It cuts your time to success. It kills your stupid tax, right? It brings your stupid tax down infinitely lower than it would have been if you were going it alone. And again, I've seen it as a personal trainer. I've seen it as a gym owner. I've seen it as a multiple gym owner. I've seen it as an agency owner. And there's very little, I don't know if I could point to very much in my business that I've done that's been more valuable than being in mastermind groups. And sometimes you join groups that don't fit with you from a values perspective or whatever it is. And you got to go find another one. But man, when you find the ones that really, do it for you, the value can just be insane. I'll tell you, whatever it was, probably at this point, I don't know, 8 years ago at least, it's not just the stuff that happens inside the line. So with our particular format, right, it's going to end up, we did a 1 day with kind of a seminar thing. The second day, we're going to be moving to 2-day hot seats where it's like 8 hours a day, 2 days, where you're just diving in to your business building material. And all that stuff is awesome. And I've learned a ton from those structures, if you will, over the years. But some of my most valuable stuff, like literally, I was telling Connor just a little while ago that, dude, we were having a couple of beers after the meeting or before the meeting. And, the day before, I'm like doing a breakfast beer, guys. Come on, it's a business trip, right? But we were maybe having a couple of drinks, and he shares his script, like a quick follow-up script. And again, this is 7-8 years ago. I didn't know my ass from a hole in the ground, which is a thing that people say, by the way. Like that is a saying that people say in here. And he shared that one thing. Hey, look, this is what I'm doing. Said, go steal it and run it. And it was probably one of the dominoes, right, that took me from making absolutely zero money and being a complete abject failure and needing to have a day job, right, where the gym was a side hustle, to being like, oh, like this is an actual thing that I can do and actually be successful with. And why did I figure that out? How was I able to solve that problem? Well, I really didn't. The only thing I did was give my credit card to somebody who put a group together and then put myself in the room and made the investment to be in the room and then talk to the other people in the room and learn from them, right? And Connor was not a coach at that time, right? He was one of those guys that, was ahead of me in the gym business. And hopefully maybe I shared some value with folks over the years as well. But it's such a valuable thing that people don't think about. They think about, oh, I'm going to have to fly. I'm going to have to get away. I'm going to have to, pay you guys, your exorbitant fees and whatever else. And they don't think about the outside the lines time. They can be some of the most valuable tactical stuff that there is. I think another thing personally, I don't know how you guys feel about this, but speaking of being around folks that are more successful, to just being in the room and you know, I call it being the smallest you know what in the room, but being the smallest you know what in the room has always been a super motivating thing for me. Right. It's like shit, even if it's just, if all I got out of the meeting was I need to go back home and work a little harder. I need to go, you know, get after shit a little bit. Like you always get that little post mastermind juice, you know, and that's been a hyper valuable thing over the years. I think there's a lot to be said for that. If you can humble yourself enough to be like, hey, I don't see these guys as a threat. I see these guys as inspiration that I can go do this shit too. I think there's a lot of sort of hidden growth potential, hidden value, right? In putting yourself in rooms like that. What else
For
you guys
sure.
got?
Everything I pretty much owe any success I have to masterminds, in-person masterminds, and again, small group format. I like that the best. Otherwise, they're just big seminars, which are great too. Different, I think hits on different check boxes, so to speak, different check boxes that we can hit, with big format stuff like that. But like, yeah, GR, it's like it's not that you, once you get out of the comparison mode, then you go into competition mode. And I think that's the best framework to do it. And as an athlete, it's like, yeah, I don't need to compare about this, but I definitely want to kind of compete and put my best foot forward and come back and see how I stack up. Like that's not comparison. I guess it is in a sense, but what's healthy is that like I'm competing against myself, and I'm competing against my business now compared to my business was 90 days ago. And I think that's the best framework to look at it. And the mastermind, how we have it structured, especially sets you up for that cadence to kind of go back and like, hey, how am I doing? And it's the game that never ends, of course. But also too, like going back to what you said, is I think what the best way to find hidden value in a mastermind too is to learn from the other people in the room, but also learn from the advice given and through the proper lens and the proper context. So for example, it's not just we want to focus on everyone that's in the room, right? Whoever's in the hot seat we're focused on them, of course. But like what you mentioned of learning from other people, it's like their situation's different. These are the key factors. These are the clarifying questions that some people are smarter than me are asking. That's the context for that individual. If I ever face that same situation with similar context, now I have the advice that they gave. And I used to think through everything like that. I was exhausted after these meetings because you're thinking of all these situations that didn't exist yet. But it's like when I think back to like hiring my first, not necessarily hiring my first staff member, I had that before I joined Mastermind, but like putting my first staff member on salary was from what I learned at a Mastermind. Multiple gym owners, multiple locations was all from Masterminds. Before I had multiple locations, I was learning about that, and getting prepared and being able to envision what that would look like. Big one though too was how do I operate in this business as a father? And I didn't have kids yet. So these other guys are having kids or getting married. I got married when I was in Masterminds. Like I didn't know that either. Like, how's this going to work when I get married? How's this going to work when I have kids or when I need to buy a house? Like all these guys that were older than us, well, I say us because we're all similar in age, but like older than us at the time in life, their advice was so powerful and had nothing to do with business, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're just in the same industry. So just kind of learning that mentorship as well. So I think that was so invaluable as I look back on how do you keep this all organized. Oh, you're so smart. You figured it out. It's like, actually, I just kind of paid attention to people that were smarter than me at the time and ahead of me at the time. And I just kind of followed directions, right? I had guardrails already set up, whether I pretty much subconscious guardrails set up, whether I knew it or not. And that's the power of a mastermind, because that's the thing too. You go back to like the initial thing and like, can I invest in this? Can I make time for this? Whatever obstacle we put in our way for it. Like if you want to be successful, like you'll find a way to find a coach and get better. That's about finding the right fit, the right room. Like, so somebody came in we've seen those guys. I invested everything to be here. I shouldn't even be here. This is a bad economic decision for me right now. I got a 2x this. I got a 5x this. I got a 10x this investment. Great. Are you in the right room that's going to go on and help you do that? Or are they just going to give you some advice, tactics, and then check out? Right. And I think that's something that we've been able to create too, is like someone comes in, now the guys that we have aren't in that position, but if they were, but relatively, maybe some of them feel that way.
The way that ours is structured, I think one of the most powerful things in getting value out of it is living in this 90-day world. because we do it quarterly. So we just kind of shrink everything down and have a focus of 90 days. And we create these goals and we create these rocks to accomplish within these 90 days. And what's cool about it is our guys, we look at financials every single quarter. So we have to come in knowing that, hey, there's probably some people in our group that are going to crush it this quarter. And it just creates a little fun competition, because you don't want to be the person that doesn't get shit done during the quarter. Like you want to come in being really happy with the way things went, being really happy with how your financials look. And it just creates these little 90-day blocks that, hey, let's push the pace for 90 days. And then let's reset at our meeting. And then we're going to do it again over and over and over again. And Mark can tell you about it. GR can tell you about it. Living in that 90-day structure, when you do that for years at a time, it's amazing how much you accomplish and how quick it goes and how much you can accelerate and how quickly you can scale the things that you're doing. Because a lot of businesses and a lot of people just do not operate that way. And it just allows you to go at a faster pace.
Well, as business owners, there's no one, one thing I hear a ton is there's no one holding us accountable, right? A lot of times you might have a couple of part-time folks or small staff or whatever, but in reality, the only one holding you accountable is you. And some of you may be absolute incredible machines where that works absolutely perfectly for, and you're complete super geniuses and every decision you make turns to gold and you never have any issues and problems and whatever else. That's certainly not been my experience. Right. And so for me, having other folks that hold me accountable has been incredibly powerful over the years. It's also like, dude, the reality of the situation, entrepreneurship and gym ownership is a lonely, stinking world. Like there's not a lot of people that understand, like, who are you going to talk to? You know, your hubby, your wife, like whatever it is, like you're probably not going to talk to your head trainer or whatever about it. They're not going to share the stress, as Mark likes to say, of building your business and growing your gym and whatnot. They're just not going to understand. Most folks don't. And so just getting in a room where, oh shit, you're going through the same stuff I am, like whether it's even just like getting some freaking weight off your back, you know, getting the monkey off your back a little bit where you don't feel so you don't feel like shit. Like, hey, I got problems. Well, guess what? Everyone else has problems too. Maybe we can work towards like solving those for you and kind of saving you, you know, some time, money, stupid tax in the process.
Two things on that too, because kind of talking about financials and it bleeds in where no one's holding us accountable. Like we can debate with ourselves and convince ourselves or like negotiate against ourselves where it's like, oh, I wasn't as, you know, revenue was down or profitability was down, but that's because I'm reinvesting back in the business. Okay, maybe, like, but let's have some people in the eyes in the room saying, actually, that investment shouldn't look like that. Or if you are, it's time to pay the piper. This is when you should be seeing that return. Like there's so many things that you can get a separate set of eyes on to kind of hold you accountable. It's like, oh man, yeah, you're right. That's just me kind of making an excuse or not wanting to deal with an issue and all that kind of stuff, because that's saying that worst comment on our meeting was economics over emotion. And that's a big one. Right. But also what GR was saying too about you can't really talk to too many people about this. Side conversations, again, so much hidden value in a side conversation in a meeting. I was talking to a guy, very successful coach, you know, ready to make a move in his business. And this guy is like an Adonis. Like people don't think this guy's got issues at all. And you may not think people like, again, that are the quote unquote top, like deal with this stuff. And, you know, we're talking about the emotion of his next venture. Oh, I'm fearful of this, or I'm scared of that. Like, I'm like, yeah, I am too, you know, it doesn't go away, you know, but just kind of having that, like, you know, it wasn't hey, advice. It wasn't do this. It was more just like, I relate to that. And then having somebody else be like, oh yeah, well, he deals with that. I'm not an imposter, right? They struggle with this too. It's like, yeah, it doesn't go away. That's what you're signing up for. If you go on this route, like this is what you can expect. Great. Now that you expect it, then now you can create a better strategy around it, find your weaknesses, strengthen those weaknesses, and go from there. It doesn't happen if you're just in your own head or acting like, look, putting myself on a pedestal, look how great I am, not challenging yourself, not getting outside your comfort zone. That's the power of the mastermind for sure.
Yeah, being stuck in your head is a pretty fucking lonely place. you can get down, in my experience, you can get down some pretty dark paths when you're in there alone. So guys, I think that's a wrap on this episode. If you're listening to this and you say, man, like I like what these guys, I'm picking up what they're putting down. I'd love to see if there's a spot in the Gympire Mastermind. Reach out on Instagram at Build Your Gympire, or comment below. We'll reach out to you if you're watching this on YouTube. We'll see if there's spots. Awesome. We'll let you apply. If not, we know some other good people in the industry. Maybe there's another spot that's open or that makes more sense for you in your situation right now. But long story short, get yourself in a room that's going to accelerate your progress. It's going to save you, time, money, headaches, stress, etc., as you are scaling your operation to whatever level you want to scale it. That's all for this week. Love, hugs. See you next time.